The Cold War was a battlefield where bullets were silent, and enemies were invisible, but hidden behind the diplomacy, behind the peace talks, behind the handshakes. A war was being fought that could destroy entire nations without firing a single shot. This was the world of spies, CIA versus KGB, and tonight, you're going to witness the most dangerous operation of that shadow war, an operation the world was never meant to discover. Our story begins in 1962, at the height of tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. Both superpowers had their nuclear missiles aimed and ready, fingers hovering over the red buttons. And the only thing preventing a nuclear disaster was information. Information stolen, information leaked, information corrupted, information smuggled through dead drops, coded messages, and double agents who trusted no one, not even themselves. In Moscow, a soft-spoken Soviet military officer named Colonel Oleg Penkovsky was about to change the course of history. He worked for the GRU, the Soviet military intelligence, but secretly, without anyone knowing, not even his closest friends, he had made contact with the CIA and MI6. To the world, he was a loyal Soviet patriot. To the CIA, he was Agent Iron Bark. The man who could expose the deepest secrets of the USSR. Penkovsky wasn't just passing notes, he was handing over the heart of the Soviet war machine: nuclear launch operations, missile capabilities, locations of hidden silos, and most importantly, the truth behind the Soviet missiles in Cuba. But this was not a simple handover. Every single meeting, every microfilm exchange, every coded message was a life-or-death gamble. Dead drops were hidden inside candy boxes, secret notes were passed on park benches, photographs were taken through the tiny lens of a modified cigarette lighter, and all of this right under the KGB's nose. Meanwhile, in Washington, CIA analysts stared at the microfilms Penkovsky delivered, and their faces turned pale. Because what he revealed was shocking. The Soviet Union had placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, missiles that could wipe out American cities within minutes. This intelligence ignited the Cuban Missile Crisis, the closest the world has ever come to nuclear war. But here's what you don't know. While Kennedy and Khrushchev exchanged threats on the global stage, a silent war was taking place in the streets of Moscow. KGB surveillance teams were watching everything, every foreign diplomat, every suspicious movement, every car that parked a little too long, every note that changed hands, and Penkovsky's activities were leaving traces. CIA handlers in Moscow began noticing a terrifying pattern. KGB shadows were tightening. There were new faces on the street, footsteps around corners, and cars following them in the rearview mirror. If even one mistake happened, even the smallest slip, Penkovsky would be arrested, tortured, and executed for treason, and any CIA operative connected to him would simply disappear. The CIA knew the window of time was collapsing. They had to extract Penkovsky. But Moscow was the most dangerous city on Earth for a spy. Getting him out alive would be almost impossible. And they were right, because while the CIA was planning an extraction, the KGB was planning something else. On a cold Moscow night, Penkovsky noticed something unusual. A black Volga car parked outside his building. Its engine was off, its lights were off, but he could feel it watching him. Agents know these signs. This was no coincidence. The net was closing. Inside CIA Moscow station, panic erupted. If Penkovsky was caught, the KGB would uncover the entire Western spy network inside the USSR. The CIA rushed their extraction plan, forged documents, disguises, and a secret escape route through a diplomatic pouch. Yes, they planned to smuggle him out of the Soviet Union like a piece of mail. But before they could initiate the plan, the worst happened. The KGB knocked on Penkovsky's door. Cold, expressionless men in gray coats. The kind who spoke softly, but killed without hesitation. Penkovsky was arrested on the spot and dragged into Lubyanka prison, the Kremlin of fear. Inside those walls, no one came out unchanged. Some never came out at all. But here's where the operation becomes even more dangerous. The KGB knew Penkovsky was a spy, but they didn't know who he was working with. So they set a trap designed to expose his CIA contacts. They used Penkovsky's own radio codes to lure the CIA into making contact. A deadly trick. But here's where the operation becomes even more dangerous. The KGB knew Penkovsky was a spy, but they didn't know who he was working with. So they set a trap designed to expose his CIA contacts. They used Penkovsky's own radio codes to lure the CIA into making contact. A deadly trick. However, the CIA was smarter than that. Their analysts detected a subtle change in the coding pattern, a shift too small for normal listeners but clear enough for trained intelligence officers. The CIA realized the truth. Penkovsky was compromised. The KGB was hunting them. What followed was one of the fastest evacuations in Cold War espionage. CIA officers in Moscow burned documents, destroyed codebooks, wiped communication logs, and exited safe houses one by one, blending into Moscow traffic like ghosts. No goodbyes, no loose ends, just vanish. Meanwhile, Penkovsky faced interrogation, the kind designed to break the strongest men alive. But even under immense pressure, he protected the identities of CIA operatives. He didn't betray them. He kept the secrets to his final breath. The Soviet Union held a secret, closed trial. No witnesses, no defense, no mercy. Penkovsky was executed, though the exact method is still debated. Some say firing squad, some say poison, some even claim he was burned alive in a crematorium while still conscious. The truth, lost behind Cold War secrecy. But his sacrifice did something extraordinary. The intelligence he provided allowed the United States to confront the Soviet Union during the Cuban Missile Crisis with undeniable proof. It forced Khrushchev to step back. It prevented nuclear war, and it shaped the outcome of the Cold War itself. One man, standing alone in the shadow of the Kremlin, changed the fate of the world. The CIA called him a hero. The KGB called him a traitor. History calls him the man who saved millions. This was the most dangerous operation of the Cold War. KGB versus CIA, a silent battlefield where courage had no uniform, and this war was won by a ghost in the shadows.